Hello YouTube, my name is Matt and I play games, and today we are going to continue with Planet Zoo. But before we begin, I just want to give a real, genuine, and heartfelt thank you to everyone who watched, liked, commented, and subscribed on the last video. You have no idea how much it means to me. I'm a new YouTuber. I got really excited when my last video before Planet Zoo got over 100 views. As I'm recording this one's pacing to go over 750. And I know that's rookie numbers, but to me, rookie numbers are just fine. So thank you to everyone that's watched, liked, commented, or even subscribed. You're all the best, and I genuinely appreciate you. So just like last time, Career Level 2 is really more of a tutorial than anything else. I am, though, going to pop in and explain some things from time to time. Also, when I'm in the park just messing around, I'm going to speed up the video. That way it's more respectful of your guys' time and it goes down from an hour and a half to like 45 minutes. I hope that's okay. If you have a preference, let me know in the comments. I'm going to do my best not to talk over the game, but I will make comments when we're just puttering around the park.
Welcome to Madagascar. It's quite the change of scenery from dreary old England, huh? Apart from the weather, I suppose. They don't call these places rainforests for nothing. The zoo you'll be working in is an ape sanctuary, where we're doing vitally important conservation work. Not just for apes, but for all kinds of species. But apes, well, apes are some of the closest relatives to humans there are. And yet, the way the world treats them is like, well, very much like some of us treat our actual relatives. Anyway, that's why I'm determined that our operation here does some good. If we can all leave some part of the world in a better state than we found it, we'll have lived lives worth living. And speaking of states, I have a horrible feeling I left the house in a right one. When I get back, I expect my life won't be worth living at all.
What do you think of Madagascar then? Bit warm for my taste, to be honest. Anyway, this is Bernie's primate sanctuary. It's not just primates though, we've got all sorts of animals. So why don't we go and have a look at some of them, eh? We'll start by taking a look at the red-ruffed lemurs. They're the ones that look like they should be in a Shakespeare play. Come on, let's head over to them. Red-ruffed lemurs are found in the rainforests of Massawa. That's in northeast Madagascar. They can actually live anywhere from 15 up to 25 years. Fancy that, eh? Okay, when you're ready, let's go find our Bornean orangutans. The Bornean orangutan is such a marvellous creature. They're always a big favourite at any zoo they feature in, and they're also the biggest tree-dwelling animal on the planet. Assuming you don't count any lions that got stuck up one. Oh, why don't you take a better look at them? Open up their information panel and go into the animal camera. Aren't they just incredible? When you're ready, let's go and have a look-see at some of our beautiful bonobos. They're quite the characters. Oh dear! It looks like we've arrived just in time. One of the habitat's barriers has collapsed. And wouldn't you know it, one of the bonobos has made a run for it. We'll need to catch them. But before we do, we should box up the other bonobos to stop them escaping too. Select the habitat boundary to bring up the habitat information panel. Good, now open the animals tab. Box up the remaining bonobos with box all animals. Now, we'll need a vet to recapture that escaped bonobo, but it seems our last one left to do some research in the wild. Not an ideal situation. So, we'll need to hire a replacement, sharpish. Go into the staff tab of the browser. You can find all of your staff in here, but there's no time to go looking at their particulars at the moment. Hire a vet. Great, now let's deal with our escapee before they can cause too much havoc. Use the animal alerts to jump to the escaped bonobo. Then press Call Vet to... Yep, you guessed it. Call the vet over to capture it. Okay, that's a relief. So while the vet deals with our bonobo friend, let's go fix up their habitat so they can't escape again. Head back over there. As you can see, the barrier's collapsed. Someone's taken their eye off the ball, obviously. Let's get this one replaced. Select the barrier and then we'll edit it. Delete the broken section of barrier and replace it with a brand spanking new one. Good. Now that we've done that, we need to make sure to add climb-proof barriers to the top. That way the bonobos won't be able to climb out. Just make sure you've got the correct piece of barrier selected when you do that. Nicely done. And I think it's high time we unboxed those bonobos, wouldn't you say? The poor mites will get sad if we leave them in there for too long. Select the habitat barrier to bring up the habitat information panel again. And then open the Animals tab. And finally, use Unbox All Animals to let them out. I expect some of them are bursting for the toilet. So, it turns out that as well as the old vet leaving, the zoo's mechanics did too. We'll need to hire a couple of new ones so we can help stop any more breakouts. You see, mechanics do all sorts of helpful things around the zoo, but one of their most important jobs is taking care of the habitat barriers. Without mechanics around to repair them, the barriers will crack, crumble, and fall down. And before you know it, we'll be overrun with escaped animals. Head into the Staff tab of the browser again. Oh, gosh, we have been busy, haven't we? Good work there. I'm off for a cuppa. Oh, I think Bernie wants a word with you.
Oh, I hear you had a bit of an issue with an escaped bonobo. The main thing is that you dealt with it swiftly, and more importantly, without the animals stealing someone's clothes, putting them on, and then walking out of the front gate.
You see, another key responsibility for our vets is animal research. Researching animals allows vets to unlock new enrichment items, additional information for our education resources, enhanced breeding programs, and improvements to food quality. Oh, the animals' food, not the vets. It'll take more than a research grant to improve the staff canteen. Anyway, as you can see, research is a key part of running your zoo. In order for a vet to undertake research, they require a research centre. And once again, that's something that this zoo is missing. So let's build one. I've marked out an area for you to put it. Now, you've probably noticed that there's already a building where I want you to build the research centre. Don't worry. You see, the building that's currently there is actually a hollow shell. So we're able to place our new building inside of it. If you select the research centre for placement and then hover over the shell, you'll see that it asks if you want to add the research centre to the existing building. Right. Splendid work. Now that we have a brand spanking new research centre, we can give our vets something to do in there. Oh, by the way, it's worth noting that the vets will only do research when they're not required to do any other jobs. That said, you can change what jobs a vet does via their information panel. let's not worry about that just now. So, let's get our vet researching ring-tailed lemurs. Pop open the access menu, head into zoo management, then go to the vet research section. Here, you can see a list of all the animals present in your zoo, and also all the potential diseases that can occur. Now, assign your vet the ring-tailed lemur to start their research. Actually, thinking about it, I'm not sure we've got any education boards or speakers by the lemur's habitat. Let's head over there and add some, so our guests can learn all about the furry little delights. First off, let's pop down 2 education boards. Place them on the habitat barriers at a height that guests can see, or, if you like, pop them down on a stand. Okay, now that they've been put into position, we have to tell them what animal to display information about. Select one of the education boards to bring up its information panel. And from the drop-down list, select ring-tailed lemur. Although I'm sure that last part was obvious. When you link an education board or a speaker to an animal, you need to make sure that said animal is close by. If it isn't, the guests will get confused and won't learn as much. Okay, now that we've done the education boards, let's pop down a pair of speakers. Speakers play audio to the guests so they can learn while they look at the animals, instead of having to go through the laborious process of reading. Oh, one thing to bear in mind is that it's important not to put the speakers too close together. If you do, the guests won't be able to understand what's being said. Now we simply need to link the speakers to the ring-tailed lemurs, just like you did with the education boards. Fantastic! Oh, it's worth remembering that education boards and speakers both need power to work. They won't do much good without it. Oh, it looks as though our vet has completed their research on ring-tailed lemurs. We'll need to collect the results. Head back into the vet research area to take a look at their findings. Go on, collect your research rewards. Just so you know, vets will continue to research an animal even after successfully completing a research level. I suppose when you're in the zone, you're in the zone. Well, now that we've enriched the lives of our guests, let's enrich the lives of our ring-tailed lemurs. Some animals, like lemurs, will have a climbing need. That means they have a requirement for a certain amount of climbing space. And you can fulfill that requirement by building them a climbing frame. Let's find out how much more climbing space our lemur friends need, shall we? Select one of them and bring up their information panel. Next, pop over to the Terrain tab. Now, as you can see, the lemurs need quite a lot more climbing space. But as it happens, I've already got a climbing frame blueprint built for you. So you can either pop that down or build one yourself from scratch. By the way, it's not always just climbing needs that you have to worry about. Other animals might need a certain amount of water in their habitat so they can go for a swim. They certainly do keep us on our toes. climbing frame for them. They're going to absolutely love it. Do you know what would make them even happier, though? Nicer food. But that's true of all of us, though, isn't it? You can unlock better quality food for animals through research. Luckily, we've already unlocked some for the lemurs, so all that remains is to make sure they get served it from now on. Let's bring up the habitat information panel by selecting the lemur habitat. So, a new climbing frame and better food. Oh, you've really spoilt those lemurs rotten. Now, I think it's time we looked at one of the zoo's most important responsibilities: releasing animals into the wild. You see, when we feel an animal is ready, we can release them into the wild. But what makes an animal a good candidate for release? Well, their age is an important factor. I mean, we can't release an animal that's a juvenile, just as we can't release one that's gotten too old. They'll also need to be fertile. After all, the idea is to repopulate the wild, so the best candidates will have a high fertility gene. And together, the age and fertility of a candidate will determine how many conservation credits we'll be rewarded when we release them. Now, conservation credits are vitally important. They're the lifeblood of your zoo, because earning them allows you to adopt even more animals. And what's more, the animals you can adopt will be of a higher quality. So, with that in mind, let's pop over to our orangutan habitat. I'd like you to find Agang, the Bornean orangutan, in the habitat and select him, please. You can go through each orangutan in turn or select the habitat barrier, go to the Animals tab in the Habitat Information panel and find him in the Animals list. I know it's sad to see him go, but he'll be happy out in the wild. And he's a wonderful candidate for release, young, strong and fertile. Excellent work there. You've definitely got potential, you know.
Ah, I see you've been doing some homework. Although, it hardly seems like work when you're learning about something as adorable as a ring-tailed lemur. I imagine I'd have got much better grades at school if there'd been less algebra and more aldebra. Tortoises.
Lovely. Now let's build a new exhibit in the gap that's been left. Just add it to the building like we did with the research centre earlier, then pop it into the gap. Perfect. The next thing to do is adopt an exhibit animal to go in there. How about a Gila monster? Open up the exhibit trading section and adopt one. Just as we do with habitat animals, we need to send the Gila monster to the exhibit. Select the exhibit to send it there. When you send an animal to an exhibit, it'll automatically be given the correct setup. But that doesn't mean it's completely ready for them. So let's finish it off. We'll start by adding some enrichment items. Head over to the exhibit's information panel. As I'm sure you know by now, you can unlock more enrichment levels by having one of your vets do some research. Now we'll also need to set the temperature and humidity in the exhibit. These are vitally important for keeping our Gila monster happy and comfortable. Open the Climate tab. Here you can see the Gila monster's desired temperature and humidity. You can change both of these by adjusting the dials below. Make sure it's going to be nice and cozy. That's the ticket. And the last thing we need to look at is setting up the different windows. So open up the Windows tab. There's also an exhibit education board. Pop them down near your exhibits to teach your guests about them. Let's add one now. Lovely stuff. Now our guests can learn all about our venomous friend here. Right, now, I've got a bit of a big job for you. I need you to increase the number of species in the zoo. You'll probably want to adopt both habitat and exhibit animals to do so, which will mean building plenty of new habitats and exhibits for them. Go on, off you pop. I'll check in with you when you're almost done.
All right, you've seen me mess around and struggle with the controls. Like I said in the last video, moving from keyboard to mouse to a controller was really difficult. I knew where everything was and what to do through Steam, not so much through PlayStation. And it got a little bit frustrating until I figured some stuff out. And I started to learn in this level. So my first thought for adding animals was, let me find animals that are compatible. Just throw them in the existing cages because I'm smart. But they obviously knew what they were doing when they created the game, and they don't let you have access to immediately compatible animals, so there's no duplicating up the ground space. It was a good thought. It didn't work out. Life goes on. So that's what I did. I moved on. My next plan. Eventually, I figure out I just need to look and see what I have, and then just buy everything that I don't have. And that worked out pretty okay. Of course, by pretty okay, I still had to relearn that you can't just drop an exhibit anywhere you want. They don't work like that. So I had to relearn some basics. Some of you, your eyes are going to twitch. Yes, I totally just used the floating platform technique. I'll be honest with you, I don't really care about the career zoos as far as role play. I don't even care about the first franchise zoo as far as role play. But again, we'll explain that in franchise. All I care about right now is checking off the boxes as quickly and efficiently as possible so that I can get through the career levels, learn what I need to, and get my 9 trophies in total. Again, for those of you that makes your eye twitch, man, I'm sorry. I get it. I promise. Franchise Zoo 2 and onward, much different. But for right now, it is practicality over pretty. And here's where I start looking for a nice big chunk of land to make a habitat. I'd really hoped I could have done more with the exhibit animals because, well, they're simple, but it wasn't going to be that way. I decided I was going to do this awesome chimpanzee enclosure right here. I was going to put the barriers underneath the pathway, practice my subtlety, work a little bit on some general design while still being practical. And it would have worked, and it would have been great, but as you'll see, Really should have paused the game before I started doing this, because by the time I got around to buying the chimpanzees, they were gone, and I had to rework the enclosure just a little bit to facilitate other animals instead. Figuring out how to multi-select the fence was also a lot of fun. I say that with all sarcasm. I got it figured out eventually, but man, it took me a while. Turns out everything in that circle gets highlighted, not just what's inside the cursor. And then begins the joy of pathing. Even on the computer, pathing is not great. It's frequently cited as one of the complaints. And maybe I have yet to figure it out here, but it's twice as rough on the console. This felt like it took me 7 minutes to figure out how to do just a simple staircase. And yeah, it'll happen again and again, because you got to have paths and they got to go where you need them to go. But I'm pretty sure the game just laughs at you. You can build incredibly complicated habitats for endangered animals and selectively breed with real genetic material, or with real genetic data rather. But don't try to do a paved road. The idea of being able to move something the direction you want it to is just a bridge too far, apparently. That victory over pathing completed, I happily skipped down to the animal marketplace to pick up my chimps, and I realized I probably should have paused the game. They're not there, so I look for literally anything I can throw in there, and a tapir works just as well as anything else. They do require some space to swim though, so I'm going to have to rework the barrier, and that's okay. That's practice with modifying things. Again, on computer, and I hate comparing the two, but I have to because that's just where my brain is at right now. I could grab one of those upright fence posts and drag it and pull it along and change the barrier. And again, on console, I haven't figured out how to do that, but you can hit delete and just rebuild. Just not quite as convenient. Also, they didn't let me play with the water for some reason. They wouldn't let me modify the terrain. So, like I said, barriers had to be moved.
My, you have been busy, haven't you? Splendid! But now that you've adopted all these lovely new species, we need to make sure they're nice and happy. So let's get the average welfare across the zoo nice and high, shall we? And by we, I mean you. Go on, get to it.
Just like with the last career level, this one ends with bringing animal welfare up. Pretty straightforward. Go down the list, find animals with lower animal welfare than the average is required, and just throw everything in there that you can to make them happy. I'm going to go ahead and really speed this up, zip to the end, give you guys some closing thoughts.
Lovely job there. You should be proud of yourself. Not only have you expanded the zoo and kept the...
Whoops, I did it again. I closed out while they were giving their closing speech. Would have really liked to know what they had to say about it, but nevertheless, that is career level 2 done and dusted. And that takes us one step closer to our goal of all 12 of the original career levels completed. I do have a question. If you want to leave a comment, let me know. Once I'm done with the original 12, do you want me to finish the DLC career levels or try the timed or challenge levels? None of those are technically required for the platinum, but I like this game. I'm willing to do more than is required to get the platinum. Again, thank you for watching. I really appreciate you all.